I'm Isabella Martinez, 26 years old, and I'm standing alone at the New York Stock Exchange watching my company's IPO bell ring. The VIP section where my family should be sitting is completely empty. This is supposed to be the biggest moment of my life, the culmination of 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears building my tech company from nothing. Instead, I'm surrounded by strangers celebrating while my phone buzzes with congratulations from people I barely know, and my family contacts remain silent. Before I tell you how I got here, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If this story of family betrayal and ultimate triumph resonates with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Trust me, you won't believe what my family did to try to destroy my dreams, and how I turned their betrayal into a $92 million victory. 6 months earlier, I was sitting at my parents' dining table in their Beverly Hills mansion, my heart pounding as I prepared to share the biggest news of my life. The crystal chandelier cast shadows across the mahogany table where my family gathered every Sunday for what my mother Catherine called mandatory family time. My father Richard Martinez sat at the head of the table in his perfectly pressed polo shirt, his real estate empire having afforded us this life of luxury. My older brother Alexander, 32 and already a successful investment banker, was scrolling through his phone while discussing his latest deal. My younger sister Sophia, 24 and in her final year of medical school, was recounting her latest clinical rotation with the enthusiasm that always made our parents beam with pride. Taking a deep breath, I cleared my throat and announced that I had something important to share. The conversation died as all eyes turned to me. I explained that for the past year, I had been secretly developing a revolutionary software platform called EcoFlow, designed to optimize energy management for large corporations and reduce their carbon footprint by up to 40%. I had been working 18-hour days, coding in my small apartment, living off ramen noodles and coffee while building something that could change the world. The technology one had developed could save companies millions of dollars while dramatically reducing their environmental impact. The silence that followed my announcement was deafening. My father's face darkened as he set down his wine glass with deliberate precision. "Isabella," he said in that condescending tone I knew all too well, "you're 26 years old. It's time to stop playing with computers and get a real job. I've been saying for years that you could have a position at Martinez Real Estate. You could learn the family business, build something that actually matters." My mother nodded in agreement, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the table. "Honestly, Isabella, this technology obsession is becoming embarrassing. What will people think when they hear you're running around calling yourself an entrepreneur?" Alexander barely looked up from his phone as he delivered his verdict. "The tech bubble burst years ago, Izzy. Anyone with half a brain knows that software companies are a dime a dozen. You're setting yourself up for failure, and frankly, it's painful to watch." Even Sophia, who I thought would understand my passion for innovation, shook her head disapprovingly. "Isabella, you're so smart. You could go to medical school, law school, get an MBA. Why are you wasting your talents on this startup nonsense? Do you know how many of these companies fail within the first year?" The words hit me like physical blows. This was my family, the people who were supposed to support my dreams and believe in my potential. Instead, they were treating my life's work like a hobby that had gotten out of hand. My father continued his assault, explaining that successful people built on proven foundations, not pie-in-the-sky technology fantasies. He suggested that I was having some sort of quarter-life crisis and needed to get my priorities straight before I embarrassed the family further. As the evening wore on, the criticism became more personal and more cruel. My mother mentioned how concerned she was about my lifestyle choices and wondered aloud whether I was having some sort of mental breakdown. Alexander started questioning my business acumen, suggesting that I didn't understand basic economics or market realities. Sophia, always the family diplomat, tried to soften the blows but made it clear that she agreed with everyone else that I was making a terrible mistake. By the time I left that night, my confidence was shattered. I sat in my car in their circular driveway, tears streaming down my face as I questioned everything I had been working toward. These were the people who knew me best, who had watched me excel in mathematics and science throughout school, who had seen my passion for technology and innovation. If they didn't believe in me, maybe I was deluding myself. Maybe I was just another naive dreamer who thought they could change the world with a laptop and an idea. But as I drove home through the winding hills of Beverly Hills, something shifted inside me. Their dismissal hurt, but it also ignited something deeper. I realized that their lack of faith in me said more about their own limitations than mine. I had spent 3 years in computer science at Stanford, graduating summa cum laude. I had worked at 2 major tech companies, learning everything I could about software development and business strategy. I wasn't some amateur playing around in my garage. I was a skilled engineer with a revolutionary product and the determination to succeed. That night, I made a decision that would define the next chapter of my life. I was going to prove them wrong, not out of spite, but because I knew my technology could make a real difference in the world. I was going to build EcoFlow into something they couldn't ignore, something so successful that they would have to acknowledge what they had missed. I didn't know it at the time, but their rejection was just the beginning of a campaign of sabotage that would nearly destroy everything I was trying to build. 3 months after that devastating dinner, EcoFlow was gaining real traction. I had been working around the clock, refining my algorithms and building relationships with potential clients. My breakthrough came when Tesla's subsidiary energy division agreed to a pilot program using my software to optimize their energy consumption across 3 manufacturing facilities. The contract was worth $2.1 million over 2 years, enough to validate my technology and attract serious investors. I was finally starting to feel like my dreams were within reach. I made the mistake of sharing this victory with my family during another Sunday dinner. I thought surely this concrete proof of success would change their minds and earn their support. Instead, it seemed to trigger something darker in them. My father's face remained expressionless as I explained the Tesla contract, but I could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. Alexander actually laughed, suggesting that Tesla was known for working with unproven vendors and that the contract probably wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. My mother changed the subject entirely, asking if I had been dating anyone lately and expressing concern that my work obsession was preventing me from finding a husband. What I didn't know was that my family was already working behind the scenes to undermine my success. Alexander, with his connections in the banking and investment world, began spreading subtle rumors about my instability and unrealistic expectations to his professional network. He would mention casually during business lunches that his sister was going through some sort of phase, pursuing unrealistic tech dreams instead of focusing on a stable career. These conversations were always framed as concern for my well-being, which made them even more damaging because they seemed to come from a place of love rather than malice. My mother took a different approach, focusing on my social and professional reputation within our community. She disinvited me from the annual Martinez Family Foundation Charity Gala, an event where I had planned to network with potential investors and clients. When I asked why, she explained that she was concerned about my ability to appropriately represent the family given my current unstable career situation. She suggested that it would be better if I waited until I had gotten my life back on track before appearing at such important social events. The most devastating blow came from my father, who refused to provide a character reference for a crucial investor meeting. The venture capital firm I was courting specifically requested references from family members, understanding that family support often indicates the entrepreneur's commitment and stability. When they called my father's office, his assistant informed them that Mr. Martinez was too busy to discuss family matters and suggested they look elsewhere for references. This single action cost me a potential $8 million investment round that would have accelerated EcoFlow's growth by years. But the worst betrayal was yet to come. Sophia, who I thought was the most sympathetic family member, had been quietly gathering information about my business plans and sharing them with competitors. During our coffee meetings, which I thought were bonding time between sisters, she would ask detailed questions about my technology, my client acquisition strategy, and my intellectual property protections. I was so grateful to have someone in the family show interest in my work that I shared everything openly, never suspecting that she was passing this information along to other startup founders in the energy tech space. The extent of her betrayal became clear when I received a leaked email chain that someone forwarded to me anonymously. The email showed Sophia discussing my proprietary algorithms with the founder of a competing energy management platform, providing detailed technical specifications and business strategies that I had shared with her in confidence. She had even shared my client list and pricing structure, giving my competitors every advantage they needed to undercut my proposals and steal potential customers. When I confronted Sophia about the emails, she broke down in tears but refused to admit any wrongdoing. She claimed that she had simply been networking within the tech community and that any information she shared was already publicly available. She suggested that I was being paranoid and that my accusations were proof of the stress-induced mental breakdown that the family had been worried about. Her gaslighting was so effective that I briefly questioned my own perceptions, wondering if I was seeing betrayal where none existed. The culminating moment came during another family dinner, 3 weeks after I discovered Sophia's betrayal. I decided to confront the entire family about the pattern of sabotage I had uncovered. I presented the evidence methodically: Alexander's rumor campaign, my mother's social isolation tactics, my father's refusal to provide references, and Sophia's industrial espionage. Instead of denial or apology, they doubled down on their attacks. My father accused me of being delusional and suggested that my business failures were causing me to lash out at the people who loved me most. My mother wondered aloud whether I needed professional help, and Alexander threatened to have me committed for a psychiatric evaluation if I continued making baseless accusations against the family. That night, I realized that I was truly alone in this fight. The people who should have been my biggest supporters had become my most dangerous enemies. They weren't just refusing to help, they were actively working to destroy everything I was trying to build. The pain was overwhelming, but it also crystallized my determination. I would succeed not just despite their opposition, but because of it. Their betrayal had taught me that the only person I could truly count on was myself, and that lesson would serve me well in the battles ahead. As I drove home from that final confrontation, I made a promise to myself. I would cut all unnecessary contact with my family and focus entirely on building EcoFlow into something so successful that they would regret their betrayal for the rest of their lives. I didn't want revenge, I wanted vindication. I wanted to prove that the daughter they had dismissed and sabotaged was capable of achieving something greater than any of them had ever imagined. After cutting contact with my family, I threw myself into my work with an intensity that bordered on obsession. I moved into a smaller apartment to reduce expenses and started working 18-hour days, coding until my eyes burned and my fingers cramped. The isolation was brutal, but it also forced me to develop an inner strength I never knew I possessed. Without my family's undermining voices in my ear, I could think clearly about my technology and my business strategy. I realized that their sabotage, while painful, had actually taught me valuable lessons about protecting my intellectual property and vetting potential partners more carefully. My breakthrough came when I connected with Marcus Thompson, a former Google executive who had left the tech giant to start his own consulting firm helping early-stage companies scale their operations. Marcus was everything my family wasn't: supportive, insightful, and genuinely excited about innovative technology. During our first meeting at a coffee shop in Palo Alto, he spent 3 hours going through my algorithms and business plan, asking thoughtful questions that helped me identify weaknesses and opportunities one had missed. Unlike my family's dismissive criticism, Marcus's feedback was constructive and actionable. Marcus introduced me to Diana Rodriguez, a marketing genius who had built 3 startups from $0 to $100 million valuations. Diana was a force of nature, a self-made entrepreneur who understood the unique challenges facing women in tech. She had grown up in East LA, the daughter of immigrants who worked multiple jobs to support the family, and she had built her success through sheer determination and brilliant strategic thinking. When she heard about my family's sabotage, she didn't express pity. Instead, she told me that the best entrepreneurs often come from adversity because they develop an unshakable inner drive that privileged competitors can't match. Together, Marcus and Diana helped me develop a revolutionary advancement to my original algorithm. We created a machine learning component that could predict energy consumption patterns with 97% accuracy, allowing companies to optimize their usage in real time and reduce costs by an average of 35%. This wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a game-changing innovation that could revolutionize how large corporations manage their energy consumption. Just as my technology was reaching new heights, my father struck another devastating blow. Using his extensive network of connections in the business community, he began quietly discouraging potential investors from funding my Series A round. He would call prominent venture capitalists and angel investors, ostensibly to discuss real estate opportunities, but would casually mention his concern about his daughter's unstable venture and suggest that she wasn't ready for major investment. These conversations were always framed as paternal concern, making them seem credible and well-intentioned. The impact was immediate and crushing. 3 investors who had expressed strong interest in leading my Series A round suddenly backed out, citing concerns about management stability and family dynamics. One investor was honest enough to tell me off the record that my father had warned him about investing in companies where the founding team didn't have full family support. According to this investor, my father had suggested that family discord often indicated deeper problems with the entrepreneur's judgment and reliability. Within 2 weeks, my carefully constructed funding round had collapsed entirely. Without the Series A investment, I couldn't hire the engineers I needed to scale the platform or the sales team required to land major enterprise clients. My burn rate was accelerating while my revenue remained limited to the Tesla pilot program. I was forced to let go of the 3 contractors I had hired, leaving me alone in my apartment with a revolutionary technology that was dying from lack of resources. The emotional toll was almost unbearable. I spent entire days staring at my computer screen, unable to code or think clearly. I was sleeping 3 hours a night and surviving on coffee and energy bars. The weight of my failure felt crushing, especially knowing that my family's sabotage was the primary cause. I began to question whether I had the strength to continue fighting against such coordinated opposition. My lowest point came when I found myself sleeping in my office because I couldn't afford both rent and business expenses. I had been evicted from my apartment after missing 2 months of rent, and I was too proud to ask friends for help. I showered at a 24-hour gym and ate meals from convenience stores, all while trying to maintain the professional facade necessary to attract investors and clients. The contrast between my childhood in Beverly Hills and my current situation was stark and humiliating. Just when I thought I couldn't sink any lower, my mother delivered another cruel blow. She mailed me a newspaper clipping about failed tech startups, with a handwritten note that read, "Thought you might find this interesting. It's never too late to pursue a more stable career path. Love, Mom." The casual cruelty of the gesture, disguised as maternal concern, broke something inside me. I realized that my family's campaign against me wasn't motivated by love or concern, it was driven by something much darker and more destructive. The unexpected lifeline came from the most surprising source. My grandmother Elena, my father's mother, had been quietly watching the family drama unfold. At 82 years old, she had seen enough of life to recognize true talent when she saw it. Elena had immigrated to America from Mexico with nothing but determination and a fierce work ethic, building a successful restaurant business that she sold for considerable profit in the 1980s. She understood what it meant to be dismissed and underestimated because of who you were rather than what you could accomplish. Elena called me on a Tuesday afternoon when I was at my absolute lowest point, having just been rejected by another potential investor. She asked me to meet her for lunch at a small Mexican restaurant in downtown LA, far from the Beverly Hills social scene where the rest of the family operated. Over plates of mole and fresh tortillas, she told me stories about her early days in America, when banks wouldn't lend money to Mexican women and business partners tried to cheat her out of her profits. Then, without any fanfare, she handed me an envelope containing a cashier's check for $50,000. "This is from my savings," she explained in accented English. "I've been watching you fight for your dreams, and I see something in you that reminds me of myself when I was young. Your family, they're afraid of change, afraid of anything they can't control. But I know what it takes to build something from nothing, and you have it. The money was enough to attend the Global Tech Innovation Conference in San Francisco, a major industry event where I hoped to connect with investors who weren't influenced by my father's sabotage campaign. Elena made me promise to use whatever resources she had given me to take one more serious shot at success. If it didn't work out, she said, at least I would know I had given everything I had to my dreams. At the conference, I met Sarah Goldman, a billionaire venture capitalist who had built her fortune by identifying revolutionary technologies before they became mainstream. Sarah was known for her ability to spot breakthrough innovations and her willingness to bet big on entrepreneurs who demonstrated exceptional vision and determination. Our conversation started when she overheard me explaining my energy optimization algorithm to another attendee, and she was immediately intrigued by the technical sophistication and commercial potential of my platform. Sarah's questions were probing and insightful, focusing on the scalability of my technology and my long-term vision for the company. When I explained the challenges I had faced securing funding, she asked pointed questions about my background and support network. I decided to be completely honest about my family's sabotage, explaining how their actions had undermined my funding efforts and forced me to bootstrap the company's development. Rather than being concerned by the family drama, Sarah was impressed by my resilience and determination. She explained that some of her most successful investments had been in entrepreneurs who had overcome significant personal and professional obstacles. She believed that adversity often created stronger, more adaptable leaders who were better equipped to handle the inevitable challenges of scaling a technology company. By the end of our conversation, Sarah had committed to leading a $15 million series of funding round for EcoFlow. She connected me with her portfolio companies that could serve as beta customers and introduced me to a network of experienced entrepreneurs who could provide strategic guidance. For the first time in months, I felt like my dreams were not only possible but inevitable. The funding from Sarah Goldman changed everything. I was able to hire a core team of engineers, developers, and business development professionals who shared my vision for transforming how companies managed their energy consumption. We moved into a proper office space in Silicon Valley and began scaling our platform to handle enterprise-level implementations. Within 6 months of securing the series of funding, EcoFlow had grown from a one-person operation to a team of 30 highly skilled professionals working toward a common goal. The success felt surreal after everything I had endured. I had proven that my technology was viable, my business model was sound, and my leadership was effective. Most importantly, I had demonstrated that I could succeed not just despite my family's sabotage, but because the obstacles they created had made me stronger and more determined than I ever could have been with their support. With Sarah Goldman's investment backing me, EcoFlow experienced explosive growth that exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Our team expanded rapidly as we attracted top talent from companies like Tesla, Google, and Microsoft, all drawn by the opportunity to work on technology that could genuinely impact climate change while generating substantial profits for our clients. The office buzzed with excitement as we refined our algorithms and prepared for major enterprise deployments that would demonstrate our platform's true potential. Our first major validation came when TechCrunch featured EcoFlow on their homepage with the headline, "The startup's AI could save corporations billions while fighting climate change." The article detailed our revolutionary machine learning approach to energy optimization and highlighted our early success with Tesla's pilot program. Within hours of publication, my inbox was flooded with inquiries from Fortune 500 companies wanting to learn more about our platform. The exposure was exactly what we needed to establish credibility in the competitive enterprise software market. My family's reaction to the media coverage was predictably dismissive and cruel. During a chance encounter at a Beverly Hills restaurant, my father approached my table while I was dining with Marcus and Diana. In front of my business partners, he loudly proclaimed that he had seen the article and wanted to congratulate me on my lucky break. He emphasized the word lucky multiple times, making it clear that he attributed my success to chance rather than skill or hard work. He suggested that I should be careful not to let the attention go to my head and reminded me that real business was built on fundamentals rather than media hype. Alexander's response was even more infuriating. He began telling people that he had been instrumental in inspiring my work ethic and business acumen through his example as a successful investment banker. At industry events and social gatherings, he would position himself as a mentor figure who had guided my early development as an entrepreneur. He claimed credit for teaching me about financial modeling and strategic thinking, conveniently omitting his role in sabotaging my funding efforts and spreading rumors about my instability. My mother took a different approach, pretending that the family conflict had never happened and expecting me to resume attending family gatherings as if nothing had changed. She called repeatedly, leaving voicemails about upcoming family events and expressing confusion about why I wasn't participating in traditional family activities. When I didn't respond, she began telling people that my success had made me difficult and that she was worried about how fame was affecting my personality and values. The most devastating betrayal during this period came from Sophia, who had apparently learned nothing from being caught sharing my proprietary information with competitors. She leaked details about my personal struggles and family relationships to a gossip blogger who specialized in Silicon Valley drama. The resulting article, titled "The Martinez Black Sheep: Family Drama Behind Tech Success," painted me as an unstable overachiever who had burned bridges with her loving family in pursuit of wealth and recognition. The article was filled with distorted quotes and half-truths that made me appear ungrateful and mentally unbalanced. It suggested that my family's concerns about my business venture were motivated by love and wisdom, while portraying my success as the result of luck and media manipulation rather than genuine innovation. The piece questioned whether my technology was actually revolutionary or simply overhyped by a media ecosystem hungry for feel-good startup stories. The professional impact was immediate and severe. One of our major potential clients, a conservative utility company, canceled a scheduled demo after reading the article. Their executive team expressed concerns about working with a vendor whose personal life might become a distraction or liability. Several other prospective clients requested additional references and background checks before proceeding with evaluations of our platform. The personal pain was even more intense than the business consequences. Reading the article felt like being stabbed by someone I had trusted and loved. Sophia had taken private conversations about my struggles and weaponized them against me in the most public way possible. She had betrayed not just my business secrets but my emotional vulnerability, turning my honest sharing about family difficulties into ammunition for a character assassination. Instead of being defeated by this latest betrayal, I channeled my anger and hurt into even more intense focus on building EcoFlow. I worked 20-hour days, perfecting our algorithms and developing new features that would make our platform indispensable to enterprise customers. The pain of my family's rejection fueled a determination that no competitor could match. Every line of code I wrote, every client presentation I delivered, was motivated by the desire to prove that their assessment of me was not just wrong but catastrophically misguided. My hard work paid off when Stanford Business School selected me for their Entrepreneur of the Year award, recognizing my innovative technology and rapid company growth. The award ceremony was held in the prestigious Memorial Auditorium, with an audience of successful business leaders, venture capitalists, and fellow entrepreneurs. As I walked across the stage to accept the crystal trophy, I looked out at the audience and felt a moment of profound sadness mixed with triumph. The VIP section reserved for family members was completely empty. My parents, siblings, and extended family had all claimed to be too busy to attend the ceremony, despite receiving personal invitations weeks in advance. My father had a critical business meeting that couldn't be rescheduled, my mother had a prior social commitment that took precedence, Alexander was traveling for work, and Sophia was studying for medical board exams. Their absence was so conspicuous that several people asked if my family was ill or facing some sort of emergency. Standing at the podium, holding an award that recognized everything I had worked to achieve, I felt the full weight of their rejection. This should have been a moment of shared celebration, a validation that would bring my family together in pride and joy. Instead, it was another reminder that success meant nothing if you had no one who truly cared to share it with you. The applause from the audience felt hollow when the people who mattered most had chosen not to witness this milestone in my life. But as I delivered my acceptance speech, talking about the importance of perseverance and the power of innovative technology to address global challenges, I realized that their absence was also a liberation. I was no longer seeking their approval or validation. I was building something meaningful for its own sake, driven by my own values and vision rather than their expectations or limitations. Their failure to recognize my achievements said nothing about my worth and everything about their inability to see beyond their own narrow worldview. The momentum continued building as major corporations began implementing our platform across their operations. Google signed a multi-million-dollar contract to optimize energy consumption across their global data center network. The University of California system deployed our technology across all 10 campuses, reducing their collective energy costs by 30% while significantly decreasing their carbon footprint. Each new client served as both validation of our technology and proof that my family's doubts were completely unfounded. As EcoFlow's valuation climbed towards $75 million, I found myself in a position I had never imagined possible. I was wealthy, successful, and recognized as a leader in one of the most important technological challenges of our time. Yet the people who should have been proudest of my achievements remained my harshest critics, unable or unwilling to acknowledge that they had been wrong about everything. The partnership with Amazon Web Services represented the largest deal in EcoFlow's history and a validation that my technology was ready for global-scale deployment. Amazon's data centers consumed enormous amounts of energy, and our platform's ability to optimize their consumption in real time could save them hundreds of millions of dollars annually while significantly reducing their environmental impact. The 18-month contract was worth $47 million, instantly transforming EcoFlow from a promising startup into a major player in the enterprise software market. The announcement of the Amazon partnership sent EcoFlow's valuation soaring to $120 million, making my personal stake worth approximately $38 million on paper. Tech industry publications hailed the deal as proof that energy optimization technology was becoming essential infrastructure for major corporations. Forbes reached out for an exclusive interview, and I was invited to speak at the World Economic Forum about the role of technology in addressing climate change. Rather than celebrating my success, my family responded with the most coordinated and vicious attack yet. My father, apparently threatened by my growing wealth and influence, made good on his long-standing threat to publicly disown me. He sent a formal letter to several business publications stating that the Martinez family had no connection to my company and that my use of the family name in business contexts was unauthorized and misleading. He claimed that I had misrepresented my background and family support to gain credibility with investors and clients. My mother escalated her psychological warfare by launching a whisper campaign about my mental health within Beverly Hills social circles. She began telling friends and acquaintances that she was deeply concerned about my erratic behavior and disconnect from reality. She suggested that my business success had triggered some sort of manic episode and that the family was considering staging an intervention to get me the psychiatric help I clearly needed. These conversations were always framed as maternal concern, making them seem credible and well-intentioned. Alexander's attack was the most professionally damaging. Using his connections in the legal world, he filed a frivolous lawsuit claiming partial ownership of my early algorithms and business concepts. He alleged that I had developed my initial ideas while living in the family home and using family resources, making my intellectual property jointly owned by all family members. The lawsuit was baseless and legally absurd, but it was designed to create uncertainty about my company's ownership structure and intellectual property rights. The legal battle consumed enormous amounts of time, energy, and financial resources that should have been focused on growing the business. I was forced to hire expensive intellectual property attorneys to defend against claims that had no merit but could potentially damage investor confidence if left uncontested. Every day spent in depositions and legal meetings was a day not spent improving our technology or acquiring new customers. The stress was overwhelming, especially knowing that the attack came from people who were supposed to love and support me. The character assassination campaign reached new levels of cruelty when my family began spreading rumors about my personal relationships and lifestyle. They suggested that my romantic relationship with Marcus was affecting my professional judgment and that I was making emotional rather than rational business decisions. They implied that my success had made me arrogant and difficult to work with, pointing to my estrangement from my loving family as evidence of my inability to maintain healthy relationships. The combined pressure of fighting my family's attacks while managing a rapidly growing company began taking a severe toll on my physical and mental health. I was sleeping 2 hours a night, surviving on caffeine and adrenaline, and experiencing anxiety attacks that left me gasping for breath in company bathrooms. My hair began falling out from stress, and I lost 20 pounds in 2 months. The irony was devastating. I was achieving everything I had dreamed of professionally while my personal life was falling apart under the weight of my family's relentless hostility. The breaking point came during a crucial investor presentation to a consortium of pension funds that were considering a $50 million investment in EcoFlow. 20 minutes into my presentation about our technology and growth projections, I suddenly felt dizzy and disoriented. The conference room began spinning, and I could feel my heart racing uncontrollably. I tried to continue speaking, but the words wouldn't come. I collapsed at the podium, unconscious before I hit the ground. I woke up in Cedars-Sinai Medical Center with Marcus holding my hand and Diana pacing anxiously beside my bed. The doctors explained that I had suffered a severe anxiety attack triggered by chronic stress and exhaustion. My blood pressure was dangerously elevated, and I was severely dehydrated. They insisted on keeping me for 3 days of observation and recommended immediate lifestyle changes to prevent more serious health complications. Lying in that hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and 4 drips, I felt like my family had finally succeeded in destroying me. They had pushed me to the literal breaking point, using their attacks to create stress that was threatening my health and my ability to run my company. I felt defeated in a way that no business challenge had ever made me feel. Physical failure was something I had never experienced, and it terrified me more than any financial or professional setback. The unexpected visitor who changed everything was my grandmother Elena. At 83 years old, she took 2 buses from her small apartment in East LA to the Beverly Hills hospital where I was recovering. She sat beside my bed for hours, holding my hand and sharing stories about her own struggles as a young entrepreneur. She told me about times when competitors tried to sabotage her restaurant business and when family members questioned her decisions and abilities. Elena's wisdom cut through the fog of stress and confusion that had been clouding my judgment for months. She explained that my family's attacks weren't really about my business or my choices, they were about their own fears and insecurities. My success forced them to confront their own limitations and regrets, making them feel small and irrelevant. Their campaign against me was actually a desperate attempt to preserve their self-image and maintain control over a situation they couldn't understand or influence. Most importantly, Elena helped me realize that I had been giving my family power over my life that they didn't deserve and hadn't earned. I had been so focused on proving them wrong that I was letting their opinions shape my decisions and emotional state. Their approval or disapproval was irrelevant to my worth as a person or my success as an entrepreneur. The only validation I needed was my own sense of purpose and the positive impact my technology was having on the world. During my recovery, I made the strategic decision to completely cut contact with my family and focus exclusively on building EcoFlow and maintaining my own mental health. I hired a team of publicists to counter their attacks and a security firm to document any further harassment or sabotage attempts. Most importantly, I began working with a therapist who specialized in helping entrepreneurs manage stress and family dysfunction. The hospital stay forced me to confront the reality that my family's attacks were more than just professional obstacles, they were genuine threats to my health and well-being. I realized that succeeding in business was meaningless if the process destroyed my physical and mental health. I needed to build sustainable practices and boundaries that would allow me to thrive personally while continuing to grow professionally. When I was discharged from the hospital, I felt like I was beginning a new chapter of my life. I was no longer the daughter seeking approval from parents who couldn't provide it, or the sister trying to maintain relationships with siblings who didn't value them. I was Isabella Martinez, founder and CEO of EcoFlow, responsible for creating technology that mattered and building a company that could change the world. That identity was enough, and it was mine regardless of what my family thought or did. The experience taught me that the most dangerous enemies are often the people closest to you, because they know exactly how to inflict maximum damage. But it also taught me that surviving their attacks makes you stronger than you ever imagined possible. The pain my family caused me became fuel for achievements they could never have inspired through love and support. In trying to destroy me, they had actually forged me into someone unbreakable. 8 months after my hospital stay, EcoFlow had transformed from a promising startup into a dominant force in the enterprise energy management sector. The enforced rest and strategic refocusing had actually accelerated our growth by allowing me to make better decisions and build more effective systems. Our team had expanded to over 100 employees across 3 offices, and our technology was being implemented by corporations worldwide, saving them billions of dollars while dramatically reducing their carbon footprints. The partnership with Google represented our most prestigious client acquisition to date. Google's commitment to carbon neutrality by 2030 made our energy optimization platform essential to their environmental goals. Our technology was deployed across their entire global infrastructure, from data centers in Iowa to office complexes in London, optimizing energy consumption patterns that few humans could comprehend but our machine learning algorithms could predict with remarkable accuracy. The 3-year contract was worth $89 million and positioned EcoFlow as the leading provider of AI-driven energy management solutions. The University of California system implementation showcased our platform's scalability and versatility. Managing energy consumption across 10 campuses, serving over 280,000 students and faculty, required sophisticated algorithms that could adapt to vastly different usage patterns and infrastructure configurations. Our success in reducing the UC system's energy costs by 32% while improving grid stability earned recognition from the Department of Energy and established us as a preferred vendor for large educational institutions nationwide. International expansion accelerated rapidly as European and Asian corporations recognized the competitive advantages our platform provided. We opened offices in London, Berlin, Tokyo, and Singapore, staffed by local teams who understood regional energy markets and regulatory requirements. Each international contract validated our technology's global applicability and demonstrated that energy optimization was becoming a universal business necessity rather than a Silicon Valley novelty. The company's valuation reached $250 million following our successful Series B funding round, making my personal stake worth approximately $97 million. Forbes featured me on their cover with the headline "The Billion-Dollar Dropout: How Isabella Martinez Built an Energy Empire While Her Family Tried to Stop Her." The article detailed my family's sabotage campaign alongside my professional achievements, creating a powerful narrative about overcoming personal adversity to achieve extraordinary success. My family's response to this latest media coverage revealed the depths of their desperation and denial. My father, whose real estate business was struggling due to rising interest rates and decreased commercial activity, attempted to reconnect through mutual business associates. He began telling people that he had always believed in my potential and that the family disputes had been exaggerated by sensationalist media coverage. He suggested that he would welcome the opportunity to discuss potential collaboration between our companies, conveniently ignoring years of active sabotage and public disownment. My mother's approach was more direct and manipulative. She appeared unannounced at my corporate offices in Palo Alto, demanding to speak with me about family reconciliation. Security called me from the lobby to report that an older woman claiming to be my mother was insisting on an immediate meeting and becoming increasingly agitated when told I was unavailable. When I reviewed the security footage, seeing her standing in my company's reception area felt surreal, like 2 incompatible worlds colliding in the most uncomfortable way possible. During the brief conversation I agreed to have with her, my mother displayed a masterful performance of selective amnesia and emotional manipulation. She claimed that she had always been proud of my accomplishments and suggested that any family conflict had been the result of misunderstandings and poor communication. She insisted that she wanted to repair our relationship and be part of my life again, conveniently forgetting her role in spreading rumors about my mental health and undermining my professional reputation. Sophia's attempt at reconciliation was perhaps the most insulting of all. She sent a carefully crafted letter expressing regret for our misunderstandings and requesting a position at EcoFlow where she could contribute her medical training to our employee wellness programs. The letter was filled with corporate buzzwords and fake sincerity, suggesting that she saw my company as a career opportunity rather than acknowledging the genuine harm she had caused through her betrayals. The final confirmation of my family's true motivations came through an anonymous tip to the Internal Revenue Service that triggered a comprehensive audit of EcoFlow's financial records. The audit was expensive and time-consuming, requiring extensive documentation and legal representation to prove that our accounting practices were completely legitimate. While the IRS ultimately found no wrongdoing, the investigation created uncertainty among investors and clients who were concerned about potential financial irregularities. My private investigator was able to trace the audit trigger back to Alexander's law firm, which had compiled and submitted a detailed complaint alleging tax evasion and financial misconduct. The complaint was based entirely on speculation and publicly available information, but it was crafted to appear credible and concerning to federal investigators. This wasn't just family drama, it was a systematic attempt to destroy my company using government agencies as weapons. The discovery of Alexander's role in the IRS audit represented a new level of betrayal that went beyond personal animosity into criminal territory. Using false allegations to trigger federal investigations was potentially illegal and definitely demonstrated that my family was willing to risk my freedom and livelihood to satisfy their need for control and revenge. They weren't just trying to hurt my feelings, they were attempting to destroy my life and send me to prison. Rather than being intimidated by their escalating attacks, I felt a cold clarity about the nature of our relationship and what needed to be done to protect myself and my company. I hired a team of investigators and attorneys to document every instance of sabotage and harassment, building a comprehensive case that could be used for restraining orders or criminal charges if necessary. I also implemented enhanced security measures at all EcoFlow facilities and began screening all business contacts to ensure my family couldn't infiltrate my professional network. The psychological distance I had gained through therapy and success allowed me to see my family's behavior with startling clarity. They weren't motivated by love, concern, or even rational self-interest. They were driven by a toxic combination of jealousy, fear, and narcissistic rage that made them incapable of accepting my success or allowing me to live peacefully. Understanding this dynamic was both painful and liberating, because it confirmed that reconciliation was impossible and that protecting myself was the only rational response. The media attention surrounding my story began attracting other entrepreneurs who had experienced similar family sabotage and dysfunction. I started receiving letters and emails from people around the world who had been undermined by relatives who couldn't tolerate their success. These connections led to the formation of an informal support network for entrepreneurs dealing with toxic family dynamics, which eventually evolved into a foundation providing resources and legal assistance for business owners facing family-related harassment. As EcoFlow prepared for its initial public offering, I reflected on how my family's attacks had paradoxically strengthened both my company and my character. Their sabotage had forced me to build more robust systems, stronger relationships with non-family allies, and clearer boundaries around my personal and professional life. I had learned to recognize manipulation and respond to it effectively rather than being devastated by it. In trying to destroy me, they had actually created someone far more formidable than I would have become with their support. The irony was that my family's success in making me stronger and more independent was also their complete failure to control or diminish me. Every attack had backfired, every betrayal had motivated greater achievements, and every attempt at reconciliation revealed their continued inability to accept responsibility for their actions. They had created the very outcome they most feared, a family member who was not only successful beyond their comprehension but also completely beyond their influence or control. The preparation for EcoFlow's initial public offering represented the culmination of everything I had worked towards since that first devastating family dinner 4 years earlier. Investment banks competed aggressively to lead our IPO, recognizing that EcoFlow had become the undisputed leader in AI-driven energy management with a platform that was essential infrastructure for any corporation serious about sustainability and cost optimization. Goldman Sachs ultimately won the mandate to take us public, projecting an initial valuation of $450 million that could reach $700 million on the first day of trading. The pre-IPO valuation process confirmed that my personal stake would be worth approximately $218 million at the offering price, with the potential for significantly higher value if trading opened strongly. Forbes magazine requested an exclusive interview and photo shoot for their cover story about my journey from family outcast to billionaire entrepreneur. The article would be titled "Betrayed and Brilliant: How Isabella Martinez Built a Fortune While Her Family Tried to Destroy Her," positioning me as a symbol of resilience and innovation in the face of personal adversity. The World Economic Forum invitation to deliver a keynote address about technology's role in addressing climate change represented global recognition of my expertise and leadership. Speaking to an audience of world leaders, Nobel laureates, and industry titans would establish me as a thought leader whose influence extended far beyond the business world into policy and social impact. The speech was scheduled for 2 weeks after our IPO, creating a perfect crescendo of professional recognition and public validation. My family's reaction to news of the impending IPO revealed the full extent of their financial desperation and moral bankruptcy. My father's real estate empire was crumbling due to rising interest rates and decreased commercial demand, leaving him with millions of dollars in debt and properties he couldn't sell. Alexander's law firm was facing potential bankruptcy after losing several major cases and being sanctioned for filing frivolous lawsuits. My mother's social standing had deteriorated as their financial problems became public knowledge, and she was being quietly excluded from the exclusive social circles that had once defined her identity. The desperate reconciliation attempts began with carefully orchestrated surprise visits designed to manipulate my emotions and create pressure for family reunification. They appeared unannounced at my corporate offices, my apartment building, and even ambushed me at a restaurant where I was dining with Marcus. Each encounter was recorded by security cameras and witnessed by multiple people, creating a public spectacle that was clearly intended to embarrass me into submission. During one particularly manipulative encounter, my mother showed up at a charity event where I was being honored for EcoFlow's environmental impact. She approached me during the cocktail reception, tears streaming down her face, and loudly proclaimed how proud she was of my success and how sorry she was for any misunderstandings that had come between us. The performance was so convincing that several attendees began pressuring me to reconcile with her, not understanding the years of sabotage and betrayal that had led to our estrangement. The fake family emergency represented their most despicable manipulation attempt yet. Sophia called my office claiming that my grandmother Elena had suffered a heart attack and was asking for me at the hospital. When I rushed to Cedars-Sinai, I discovered that Elena was perfectly healthy and had never been admitted. The entire emergency was fabricated to lure me into a family intervention where they planned to pressure me into sharing my IPO proceeds and reconnecting with the family. Their public social media campaign was equally transparent and pathetic. All 3 family members suddenly began posting old photos of family gatherings and childhood memories, accompanied by captions about how proud they were of my success and how much they missed having me in their lives. They tagged me in every post and encouraged their followers to comment about the importance of family forgiveness and unity. The campaign was clearly designed to create public pressure for reconciliation while positioning themselves as loving family members rather than saboteurs. My response to their reconciliation attempts was calculated and decisive. I hired a leading public relations firm to manage media coverage of my family's harassment campaign and ensure that their manipulation tactics were properly contextualized. I also retained a team of investigators to document every attempted contact and manipulation, building a comprehensive record that could be used for restraining orders or criminal charges if their behavior escalated further. The most satisfying aspect of my preparation for the IPO was the realization that I no longer needed or wanted their approval or presence in my life. I had built something extraordinary without their help and despite their interference. My success was entirely my own creation, achieved through my own talent, determination, and vision. Their attempts to reconnect were motivated entirely by greed and self-interest rather than genuine love or regret. The day before our IPO, I personally delivered invitations to each family member, extending one final opportunity for them to witness my moment of ultimate triumph. The invitations were formal and professional, making it clear that their attendance would be welcomed but not expected. I wanted them to have the choice to participate in my success, even though their previous behavior had forfeited any right to share in my achievements. Their decision to decline my invitations was both predictable and revealing. They claimed scheduling conflicts and prior commitments, but the real reason was that they couldn't bear to witness the magnitude of my success and their own irrelevance to it. Attending my IPO would force them to acknowledge that they had been wrong about everything and that their sabotage had failed completely. Their pride and narcissism made it impossible for them to admit their mistakes or celebrate my achievements. Standing in the New York Stock Exchange on the morning of our IPO, surrounded by employees, investors, and partners who had believed in my vision and supported my journey, I felt a profound sense of completion and vindication. The trading floor was buzzing with excitement as EcoFlow prepared to join the ranks of publicly traded companies that were reshaping the global economy. The opening bell would mark not just the beginning of public trading but the final confirmation that my family's assessment of my potential had been catastrophically wrong. The empty VIP section where my family should have been sitting served as a powerful reminder of the price of their betrayal. They had chosen pride over love, control over support, and destruction over celebration. Their absence was their loss, not mine, because I had found family among the people who shared my values and supported my dreams rather than trying to destroy them. As the opening bell rang and EcoFlow began trading at $68 per share, valuing the company at over $800 million, I felt a surge of emotion that was part triumph and part sadness. I had achieved everything I had dreamed of and more, but the people who should have been proudest were nowhere to be found. Their betrayal had motivated my success, but it had also ensured that they would never be part of it. EcoFlow stock opened at $73 per share and closed its first day of trading at $86, valuing the company at over $1 billion and making my personal stake worth approximately $412 million. The successful IPO was covered extensively by financial media, with analysts praising our technology, business model, and growth trajectory. CNBC featured me in their Disruptors series, Bloomberg included me in their list of innovators to watch, and the Wall Street Journal profiled my journey from family outcast to tech billionaire. The media coverage generated unprecedented interest from corporations, governments, and environmental organizations worldwide who recognized that energy optimization technology was becoming essential infrastructure for any entity serious about sustainability and cost reduction. Our stock price continued climbing throughout the first week of trading as institutional investors competed to build significant positions in what many analysts considered the defining company of the clean technology revolution. The text message from my father arrived exactly 1 week after our IPO, just as Forbes published their cover story featuring me as one of America's youngest self-made billionaires. The message was brief but loaded with decades of manipulation and entitlement. Saw the Forbes article. Always knew you would succeed. Can we talk? The casual tone disguised the desperation behind his outreach, and the phrase "always knew you would succeed" was a breathtaking revision of history that ignored years of active sabotage and public disownment. Rather than responding immediately, I decided to address the entire family situation decisively and permanently. I scheduled a meeting at my parents' Beverly Hills mansion, the same location where this journey had begun 4 years earlier when they dismissed my dreams and belittled my ambitions. The circular driveway looked exactly the same, but I arrived in a chauffeur-driven Tesla Model S Plaid, wearing a custom Armani suit, and accompanied by my head of security due to their previous harassment attempts. The atmosphere in the familiar dining room was surreal and charged with tension as my family gathered for what they clearly hoped would be a reconciliation meeting that would restore their access to my wealth and success. My father sat at the head of the mahogany table in his usual spot, but his commanding presence had been diminished by financial stress and public embarrassment. My mother had clearly spent considerable time preparing for this meeting, wearing her most expensive jewelry and adopting the gracious hostess persona that had once defined her social identity. Alexander attended despite the documented evidence of his role in triggering the IRS audit and filing frivolous lawsuits against my company. His presence demonstrated remarkable audacity, but it also revealed his desperate financial situation and willingness to endure any humiliation if it might restore his access to family resources. Sophia sat quietly, alternating between shame and hope, clearly struggling with the contradiction between her previous betrayals and her current need for forgiveness. I began the meeting by presenting a comprehensive dossier documenting every instance of sabotage, betrayal, and harassment that I had endured from each family member. The evidence was overwhelming and indisputable: recorded conversations, email chains, sworn affidavits from witnesses, financial records showing the impact of their interference, and medical documentation of the stress-related health problems their attacks had caused. Each revelation was met with silence, denial, or pathetic attempts at justification. My father's response to the evidence was characteristically arrogant and self-serving. He claimed that his actions had been motivated by legitimate concern about my business decisions and that any interference had been intended to protect me from failure and embarrassment. He suggested that his experience in business gave him insights that I lacked and that his skepticism had been proven wrong only because of fortunate market conditions and lucky timing rather than my skill or vision. My mother's reaction was more emotional but equally dishonest. She broke down in tears and claimed that she had always been proud of my achievements but had been advised by family therapists and friends to maintain distance while I worked through my issues. She insisted that her concern about my mental health had been genuine and that spreading rumors about my instability had been an attempt to encourage me to seek professional help rather than deliberate sabotage. Alexander's response was legally sophisticated but morally bankrupt. He argued that his actions had been within legal bounds and that business competition often involved aggressive tactics that weren't personal attacks. He claimed that his lawsuit had been based on legitimate concerns about intellectual property ownership and that triggering the IRS audit had been motivated by civic duty rather than personal animosity. Sophia's confession was the most honest but also the most devastating. She admitted that jealousy and family pressure had motivated her betrayals, acknowledging that she had shared my confidential information with competitors and leaked personal details to gossip bloggers. She broke down completely while describing how the family's toxic dynamics had corrupted her judgment and made her betray the sister she claimed to love. My response to their explanations and excuses was calm, methodical, and final. I explained that their motivations were irrelevant because their actions had caused genuine harm that could never be undone or forgiven. They had demonstrated that they were willing to destroy my health, reputation, and livelihood to maintain their sense of control and superiority. Trust, once broken so completely, could never be restored regardless of their current financial desperation or social need for reconciliation. The power dynamic in the room had shifted completely since our last family gathering. For years earlier, I had been seeking their approval and support while they held all the financial and social advantages. Now I commanded resources and influence that dwarfed anything they possessed, and their future security depended entirely on my decisions about forgiveness and generosity. The irony was palpable and deeply satisfying. My father's final desperate gambit involved offering to sell me his failing real estate company at a significant discount, framing the proposal as a family business opportunity that would benefit everyone involved. He suggested that combining his industry experience with my financial resources could create a powerful real estate technology platform that would revolutionize property management and development. The conditions I attached to any potential business relationship were designed to expose their true character and motivations. I offered to purchase his company at fair market value, but only if he published a full public apology acknowledging his sabotage of my career and accepting responsibility for the harm he had caused. The apology would need to be printed in major business publications and include specific details about his interference with my funding efforts and his campaign to damage my professional reputation. The family's response to my conditions revealed everything I needed to know about their priorities and character. Despite facing bankruptcy and social disgrace, they were unwilling to acknowledge their wrongdoing or accept responsibility for their actions. Their pride mattered more than their financial security, and their need to maintain their self-image superseded any concern for rebuilding our relationships. My mother's final plea was perhaps the most manipulative moment of the entire confrontation. She claimed that family was more important than money or business success and that I was allowing material achievements to corrupt my values and destroy my connections to the people who loved me most. She suggested that my refusal to forgive them proved that success had made me cold and vindictive rather than generous and understanding. My response to her manipulation was direct and devastating. I explained that family should be a source of support and encouragement rather than sabotage and betrayal. Real family members celebrate each other's successes rather than attempting to destroy them out of jealousy and insecurity. I had learned to distinguish between people who loved me unconditionally and people who only valued me when I served their purposes or validated their superiority. The meeting concluded with my final decision about our relationship and their future. I would not be purchasing my father's company or providing financial assistance to any family member who had participated in sabotaging my career. I would not be attending family gatherings or maintaining any personal relationship with people who had proven themselves untrustworthy and destructive. However, I also would not be seeking revenge or using my resources to harm them further. Their punishment was simply being excluded from my success and happiness, which was consequences they had earned through their own choices and actions. They would need to rebuild their lives and reputations without my help, just as I had been forced to build my success without their support. As I left the mansion for the final time, driving away in my Tesla while they stood watching from the front door, I felt a profound sense of closure and liberation. I had said everything that needed to be said and heard everything I needed to hear. The chapter of my life that included seeking their approval or maintaining hope for their redemption was permanently closed. The decision not to purchase my father's company or provide financial assistance to my family represented the final step in my journey from seeking their approval to achieving complete independence from their influence. Walking away from their desperation and maintaining my boundaries required strength I had developed through years of surviving their attacks and building my own success. Money could not heal the damage they had caused or change the fundamental character flaws that had motivated their betrayal, so using my wealth to rescue them would only enable future manipulation and abuse. The months following our final confrontation were filled with continued therapy sessions focused on processing the complex emotions surrounding family estrangement and extraordinary professional success. My therapist helped me understand that forgiveness did not require reconciliation or trust, and that protecting myself from further harm was an act of self-love rather than vindictiveness. I learned to distinguish between healthy guilt about disappointing people and toxic guilt about refusing to enable destructive behavior. I also established firm boundaries about any future contact with family members, implementing legal protections against harassment while leaving the door open for genuine change and accountability that seemed unlikely but remained theoretically possible. If any family member sought genuine therapy, accepted full responsibility for their actions, and demonstrated sustained behavioral change over several years, I would consider limited contact focused on rebuilding trust rather than immediate forgiveness. The process of building a chosen family with Marcus, Diana, my employees, and other entrepreneurs who shared my values proved far more fulfilling than any biological relationship I had previously experienced. Marcus and I deepened our romantic relationship built on mutual respect, shared goals, and authentic emotional support rather than manipulation and competition. Diana became both a business mentor and a close friend whose own journey from poverty to success provided wisdom about maintaining perspective and authenticity despite extraordinary wealth. My relationship with my grandmother Elena became the model for what healthy family connections could look like when built on genuine love and mutual support rather than obligation and control. Elena celebrated my success without jealousy or attempts to benefit financially from my achievements. She offered wisdom and encouragement without trying to control my decisions or take credit for my accomplishments. Our weekly dinners at small family restaurants became sanctuaries of unconditional love and acceptance. The establishment of the Martinez Foundation for Entrepreneurial Resilience represented my commitment to helping other business founders who faced family sabotage, discrimination, or other forms of systematic undermining. The foundation provided legal assistance, mental health resources, and financial support for entrepreneurs whose personal circumstances created additional obstacles to business success. Helping others navigate family dysfunction and professional challenges gave deeper meaning to my own journey and success. EcoFlow continued growing rapidly as corporations worldwide recognized that energy optimization was essential for both environmental sustainability and competitive advantage. Our technology platform expanded beyond energy management to include comprehensive sustainability analytics that helped companies optimize water usage, waste reduction, and supply chain efficiency. Within 2 years of our IPO, the company was valued at over $3 billion and employed more than 800 people across 15 countries. The personal growth that accompanied my professional success included developing healthy romantic relationships, meaningful friendships, and sustainable work habits that prioritized mental health and life balance alongside business achievement. Learning to receive love and support from people who offered it freely rather than strategically required unlearning patterns established during childhood and reinforced through years of family dysfunction. The wedding to Marcus 2 years after our IPO was attended by our chosen family of friends, colleagues, and mentors who had supported our relationship and individual growth. My grandmother Elena served as my matron of honor, and Diana officiated the ceremony with humor and wisdom that reflected our unconventional but authentic community. The absence of my biological family felt natural rather than painful because the people present genuinely celebrated our happiness without reservation or ulterior motive. The honeymoon in New Zealand provided perspective on how far I had traveled both geographically and emotionally from the young woman who had sought approval from people incapable of providing authentic support. Standing on mountaintops overlooking landscapes that existed long before human family drama and would remain long after, I felt connected to something larger than personal success or vindication. My journey had taught me that healing required creating new patterns rather than fixing broken relationships. The keynote address at Stanford Business School 5 years after graduation focused on the paradox that the greatest obstacles often become the source of the greatest strength when approached with courage and persistence. I shared my story not to encourage family estrangement but to normalize the experience of succeeding despite rather than because of family support. Many entrepreneurs carry shame about family dysfunction that limits their willingness to seek help or share their struggles with others who might provide guidance and encouragement. The annual scholarship program for first-generation college students pursuing technology degrees became one of my most meaningful philanthropic commitments because it addressed the intersection of family expectations and individual dreams that had defined my own journey. Many recipients faced pressure to pursue traditional careers rather than innovative fields, and the scholarship provided both financial support and mentorship to help them navigate these competing demands. The life lesson that emerged most clearly from my experience was that the family you choose matters infinitely more than the family you inherit through genetics and circumstance. Building relationships based on shared values, mutual respect, and authentic care requires vulnerability and discernment, but it creates connections that sustain you through challenges rather than creating additional obstacles to overcome. Success without family support is not only possible but can be more meaningful because it reflects your authentic capabilities rather than inherited advantages or connections. When achievements result entirely from your own vision, effort, and resilience, they provide self-knowledge and confidence that no external validation could match. The approval of people who didn't believe in your potential becomes irrelevant when you have proven your worth to yourself and people whose judgment you respect. The final wisdom I gained was that sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving toxic people wrong about your capabilities but building a life so fulfilling that their approval becomes completely irrelevant to your happiness and self-worth. Revenge fantasies lose their appeal when you discover that living well according to your own values provides deeper satisfaction than any external validation or vindication could offer. Standing in the garden of our Marin County home, watching Marcus play with our rescue dog while Elena tends to her vegetable garden and Diana's children splash in the pool during our weekly family gathering, I understand that this chosen family represents everything my biological family could never provide: unconditional love, authentic support, and genuine celebration of each other's growth and happiness. The journey from family rejection to chosen family acceptance taught me that healing happens not through changing other people's hearts but through opening your own to relationships that nourish rather than diminish your spirit. Sometimes the greatest act of love is walking away from people who are incapable of loving you properly and creating space for connections that honor your worth and support your dreams. My story continues evolving as EcoFlow expands globally and my personal relationships deepen through shared experiences and mutual support. But the foundation has been established. Success tastes sweetest when shared with people who believed in you from the beginning, and the greatest inheritance you can give yourself is the courage to build the life and relationships you deserve rather than accepting whatever circumstances provide. What lessons have you learned about choosing family versus accepting family? Have you ever had to make difficult decisions about toxic relationships, even with people you loved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who's struggling with similar challenges. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about overcoming adversity and building the life you deserve. Don't forget to share this with anyone who needs to hear that success is possible even when the people closest to you don't believe in your dreams. Remember, your worth isn't determined by who supports you, but by the courage you show in pursuing your goals despite the obstacles. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the strength to build relationships that truly serve your growth and happiness.